I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Well, we've had a pretty busy news day here. Oregon Secretary of State submitted her resignation, caught up in a scandal involving questionable choices that she made. And Oregon's governor ordered a pause on tolling for a year. Both are really big stories. We're going to start with tolling, though, because that directly affects tens of thousands of people. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek announced this morning that she wants the Department of Transportation to slow down on its tolling plans. The first tolls were scheduled to start late next year in the fourth quarter of 2024. Instead, Kotek ordered a pause until January of 2026, so that's a delay of just over a year. We asked the governor's office for an interview as soon as the news came out this morning. I wanted to talk with her about the delays and the need for tolls. So far, they've not responded, so you're not going to hear from her directly tonight. Those tolls were set to start on the Abernathy and Tualatin bridges in Clackamas County. The Abernathy Bridge is being worked on right now to add lanes and protect it against earthquakes. Tolling would be added there to pay for that work and also to ease traffic jams. Political leaders and residents pushed back hard against the tolling plans. They're concerned about the cost of crossing the bridges. Working estimates put the tolls at between 60 cents to $2.20 per trip, depending on the time of day. That's per crossing. They also worry about traffic nightmares in their neighborhoods as drivers get off the interstate to avoid the tolls. So here's what's happened. Last week, a group of lawmakers from that area, Clackamas County, introduced a bill in the legislature which would force a pause in the tolling for 2 years. That pushed it out to January of 2026. But instead, the governor issued the pause of her own, and legislative leaders set up a new committee to monitor ODOT's infrastructure repair and modernization plans. That includes efforts to mitigate the impact of tolling on vulnerable communities, according to a press release from lawmakers. It's an interesting reason for the pause, since ODOT has apparently already studied the issue extensively. Here's what Brendan Finn, the director of ODOT's tolling program, told me in mid-April.
If there's one thing we've heard more than anything else, it's the impact that it would have on those that are currently impacted by having low incomes. And we've been directed, and also something that we've initiated as well as an agency, to look at implementing a low-income discount or exemption program. So we've looked around the nation, we've looked around the world on what some of the best practices are, and we'll be forwarding on to the Oregon Transportation Commission a recommendation that they will consider when they establish rates to have this program up. We are the first in the nation, I do like to brag a little bit about this, that has considered that and plan on implementing a low-income discount or exemption program prior to actually turning on tolls.
But lawmakers in the Clackamas area and the governor apparently were not impressed. So the collection of tolls will be pushed back at least a year. But don't confuse that with tolls are not going to happen. They are still very much the funding mechanism of choice right now for the Department of Transportation, an option they've been working on for 6 years. ODOT's director, Chris Strickler, released a statement today saying, in part, implementing a modern toll program for the first time in Oregon requires extensive planning and community engagement. We understand our drive to meet legislative intent to implement tolling quickly left communities and elected officials feeling unheard. He goes on, we appreciate the guidance of our elected leadership that our top priority should be to set the program up right. Together we can design a tolling program that achieves our shared goals of ensuring safety, mitigating congestion, supporting our economy, and reducing pollution. Okay. Now, I know some of you are supporters. You tell us that there are tolls all over the country, that they do work well for regulating traffic flows, and that if we want nice things, we have to pay for them. But there is a second camp very much against the tolls, and Dean Scher would like to talk to you. He's the creator of something called IP4. He's trying to gather 200,000 signatures to force a statewide vote. If passed, his initiative would allow people within 15 miles of a planned tolling area to vote to approve or to stop that toll. He says if you're against the tolls, don't relax just because there's a pause.
Folks may lose interest, but the reality is this is just a pause. It's a pause until 2026. It does not slow down the plans. It might slow the starting of the credit cards being charged, but it is only a pause. IP4 puts the control in the hands of the people through a vote before tolls. So it's absolute.
Sure is hoping to gather enough signatures by this time next year and take the issue out of the hands of the legislature.
And the idea is that it would force transparency by those that are planning to implement tolls. It is not no on tolls. It's not yes on tolls. It just says we get the right to understand how tolls are going to be used, whether they're going to sunset, what are the amounts, all those kinds of things up front. It is an initiative petition, which means we need to sign, we need to gather 200,000 signatures to get it on the ballot, and we're targeting the 2024 ballot.
I have not decided whether I support the movement or not, but I know that a lot of you are interested. Dean's website is votebeforetolls.org. In the meantime, what do you think about this pause? Are you feeling a sense of relief, or are you worried about tolls no matter when they start? Let us know, will you? Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Now to our other huge story of the day. Just a day after her tearful news conference pledging to restore public confidence in her office, Oregon Secretary of State Shemia Fagan throws in the towel. She announced this morning she will resign officially Monday, May 8th. She decided she could not survive a scandal of her own making, taking a side job with a marijuana company that her staff was auditing. Fagan was a rising star amongst Democrats. This is video from 2014. She has a law degree, grew up in Eastern Oregon, and has a compelling family story. She was raised by her father and two older brothers. She was a civil rights attorney. Then she was elected to the Oregon House and later to the Oregon Senate. She is a forceful speaker. Here she is in 2020 railing against Republicans for walking out and stopping then Governor Brown's cap and trade bill.
So it sounds to me like the people have already voted. What needs to happen now is the Republicans need to come back and vote.
In 2021, Fagan ran for Secretary of State and won. She was sworn in person despite COVID. She reached the second highest elected position in all of Oregon. Secretary of State is a traditional launching pad for those wanting to run for governor when the time is right. Fagan pledged to restore trust in government leaders. One of her first big spotlights in the office came last year when New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof tried to run for governor. Fagan and her investigators ruled he could not, that he did not meet the requirements for resident. The main function of her office is to make sure elections are squeaky clean and that everything works well. The other main function is auditing state agencies and programs to make sure that they are all functioning well. And that's where she ran into trouble. It turns out that while her auditors were examining the marijuana industry here in Oregon, Fagan was taking a side job with one of those companies. Willamette Week broke the story and the fact that Fagan earned $10,000 a month from the company, far more than her state pay. Monday, hoping to save whatever was left of her reputation and her job, Fagan was apologetic as she talked to the media over Zoom.
I will start by sharing that I terminated my consulting contract with Verity Holdings yesterday, and I released the contract to the media earlier this morning. I owe the people of Oregon an apology. I owe the diligent professionals in my agency an apology. I am truly sorry. I exercised poor judgment by contracting with a company that is owned by my political donors and is regulated by an agency that was under audit by my audits division. I am sorry for harming the trust that I and so many others have worked so hard to build, and I will begin working to build that trust back today.
But it was, as they say, too little, too late. The Oregonian newspaper this morning came out with a blistering editorial and called for her resignation. They blasted her for taking the contract in the first place. They blasted her for not ending the contract as soon as Willamette Week revealed the company she was working with owed millions in back taxes. They also slammed her for telling her auditors to interview one of the owners of the marijuana company that was paying her. And they criticized Fagan for not being willing to release her tax records so the public can see where her money's coming from. It was perhaps the final straw. The news about Fagan began late last week, and over the weekend, Governor Tina Kotek made it clear she was offering Fagan no help.
I don't have outside employment. I only have one job. And so I can't speak to what anybody else does.
Yeah, so that comment was pretty telling. That was the governor saying, Shemia, you are on your own. Do not expect a lifeline from me. And I'd love to find out exactly what happened behind the scenes, what led Fagan in the last 24 hours to switch from "I'm going to restore public trust" to "I'm out of here." But it's clear to me that anyone powerful enough to give her political cover and help her survive this drama had turned against her. The 4 Democratic leaders of the House and Senate issued a statement after the resignation saying Fagan's severe lapses of judgment eroded trust with the people of Oregon. Former state lawmaker and candidate for governor Betsy Johnson agreed resigning was the right thing to do.
She had to have looked at the optics of this at some point in time and come to the conclusion you cannot rebuild trust from a breach of this magnitude. I think overall the public reaction is going to be one of that was the right thing to do given the totality of these circumstances.
Okay, so there you have it. Fagan is out. Her deputy will run the show until the governor picks a replacement, who has to be a Democrat, by the way. Not that Kotek would choose a Republican anyway, but different story. By the way, here's an interesting factoid. The deputy, Cheryl Myers, she makes $238,000. Fagan, as the elected Secretary of State, only makes $77,000. It's unclear if Myers will have to take a pay cut while stepping in as Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is next in line to be governor if the governor cannot do the job for some reason. But whoever Kotek ends up appointing will not be second in line because they're not elected. So next in line now and until the next election is going to be State Treasurer Tobias Reed. He'll be next in line until 2024 in the November general election. Still to come on the story. When it comes to bills in Salem, few have prompted as many emails and voicemails to us as this one involving homelessness.
I'm calling about whether you've done a story yet on House Bill 3501, the Right to Rest bill.
Dozens of you have sent us messages you've asked, and we're going to answer. What exactly would the bill do, and does it even stand a chance? Plus, what about that bill that would pay homeless people $1,000 a month? Updates on both pieces of legislation when the story returns. Now let's get to a story that's been getting national attention on CNN and Fox News, and some local heat from various groups around Portland. It's House Bill 3501, or the Right to Rest bill. It would make removing homeless camps from public property illegal. And it goes a step further by allowing homeless people to sue for $1,000 if they're harassed or told to move, as long as there was nowhere else for them to go. Dozens of you have emailed and called us urging us to look into the bill, so okay, here you go. It's dead, done, not going to happen, at least not this year. The bill missed deadlines to advance, so it's not moving forward, and definitely not in this session anyway. It was introduced by two Democrats in the House, one from Beaverton, Aloha area, the other from outer southeast Portland. The Right to Rest bill has been introduced before with little to no movement. The last time it only got 15 minutes of public testimony, but it was supposed to get a full public hearing later this week for the purpose of hearing public input on the bill's concept for the next time. Hundreds of people from across the state submitted written testimony, the overwhelming majority against the bill. Apart from those comments remaining in the public record, they don't really matter anymore. That public hearing was canceled, with the dead bill being called a distraction. House Majority Leader Julie Fahey released a statement this morning that reads in part, House Bill 3501 does not have the support or the time to move forward, full stop. Given that this bill has become a significant distraction from all of the work we're doing this legislative session, the chair has made the decision with my support to cancel the public hearing set for this Thursday. Those who proposed the bill told our Blair Best yesterday that they plan to introduce it again in future sessions. And while Blair was working on that story, she also wanted to check in on another local bill that's made national waves earlier this year. It's Senate Bill 603, otherwise known as the $1,000 a month for homeless people bill. It would establish a new program that would give certain people monthly $1,000 payments for 2 years. Homeless people who are not receiving housing assistance would be eligible, as well as people at risk of becoming homeless, those who make less than 60% of the area's median income, or people who spend more than half their monthly income on rent. The program would start with $25 million, with enrollment capped once the money ran out. The bill's chief sponsor is a Democratic senator from Aloha, along with the same Democratic rep from outer southeast Portland from the last bill. So what's going on with that bill? Well, it's also dead. It also missed the legislative deadlines, failing to move out of its original committee. So the next time you're watching national cable news like Fox or CNN, and they're talking about a bill in our area, in the greater Portland area in Oregon, and you feel your blood pressure starting to boil, take it easy. Just send us an email. Our address is thestory@kgw.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Let us know what you're seeing. We'll look into it. We can cut through the noise and bring you the facts. Still to come on the story, we're checking back in on a cold case from the early 1990s. A young mother disappeared after being released from jail, and despite 2 arrests shortly after her disappearance, no charges have ever stuck. More than 3 decades have passed, but her family is not giving up on their search for justice. Stick around. We're back right after this.
Straight ahead at 6:30, a vandalism spree hits Sherwood, the damage left behind, and what we know about the suspects. Plus, the pit bull that attacked a jogger is still out there and off leash, even after law enforcement tracked it down. We'll explain why. And a wildfire tracking app goes online in Oregon. Who is helping get the word out about potential danger? That's ahead at 6:30. Hope to see you then.
It's a mystery that goes back some 32 years. A missing persons case turned homicide that rocked Snohomish County, Washington. What happened to Kathy Dobson, who family and friends called by her maiden name, Kathy Dawson? The young Everett mother disappeared at the age of 24. Joyce Taylor from our sister station in Seattle talked to Kathy's shattered family, still searching for answers 3 decades later.
The cemetery's in Murrysville. I mean, she's right along the pathway. So I just park the car on the pathway and I take a few steps and there's stones right there. It's still a tragedy, 30 plus years later.
So the biggest question now is,
who actually saw her last?
My name is Robert Dawson. I'm the oldest brother of Catherine. She was my little sister.
tell me about Kathy.
She was the baby that, kind of looked after. She was a great person. She was always very happy.
My name is Lynn McKee, and I am the mother of Catherine Lynn Dawson. She loved horses, dogs. She showed dogs. She got along with everybody. She was a street kid and trusted everybody.
Family members say Kathy was involved in drugs. She struggled with addiction, and she hung out with known drug dealers. In fact, the last time Bob spoke to her, she was in jail on drug-related charges.
Sometime after she got out of jail, she says, I plan on coming over and seeing Eva on the 27th of June when I'll be out by then. We never heard from her.
She would phone me constantly during the week, said, Eva's birthday was coming up.
I'm Eva Dawson.
And she wanted to have a birthday party.
My mother is Kathy Dawson.
When she didn't phone back, I knew something was wrong.
She just never showed up. It's been sad and just, it hurts my heart.
Investigators are involved in this tedious, hands-on search in this illegal garbage dump. They say it's too early to tell.
And we heard this story being released on the news. I knew in my heart that it was her.
The skeleton found in this garbage dump is all that's left of this woman, 24-year-old Catherine Dobson. Her killer left her body here sometime between June 20th and July 17th.
People come in here and they throw car parts, furniture parts, and general trash. And it's difficult for the detectives to find, what's evidence and what's non-evidence because of that.
It drove me crazy that they labeled her.
This club, the Deja Vu in Everett, is where the victim worked as a topless dancer until her disappearance in June.
Dancer from Deja Vu. They never said that she was a mother, a daughter.
Investigators still aren't sure if her work here has anything to do with her death.
Wasn't right. She was a human being.
Almost a year later, December 1992, finally a break in the case. Informants tell prosecutors that Kathy's murder was a hit job ordered by Yakima-based drug traffickers who thought Kathy was a snitch.
The enforcement end of that organization picked her up from jail, and then she was gone, taken from us.
Were you surprised when they let them go?
Yes. Because in my gut, I thought they had something to do with it.
Do you still believe that?
Yep.
Of course, DNA wasn't there at the time, but we have DNA now. Why can't they get solved?
I want somebody to pay for their crime.
Fess up. Give us some clues.
I just wish I got to know my mom.
Heartbreaking when I look at Eva because I see my sister.
I randomly go up to Marysville and see my mother's gravesite. It gives me a little peace, you know. I talk to her.
Well, I talk to her about her kids. I give her updates on her kids.
Yeah, sometimes I'll catch myself just like talking to her. I don't really know what I'm talking to, but
She was just a wonderful sister, a wonderful mother. Yeah, that's how she should be remembered.
it's not fair. It's just not fair.
Let's hope the family's able to finally find some answers. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our story, that never ends. Stick around for the news at 6:30, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.